Good morning, Jets fans. It is the day after, the morning after week one, Jets blowout loss to the 49ers. One thing that jumped out to me in the game last night that has to be addressed, and I talked about it in the pregame. For those of you who saw, I put out a video and I basically said near the end of that video, and this is, of course, before we knew McCaffrey was out, which obviously didn't make a difference. But I said, if I'm the 49ers, I'm going to run the ball down the Jets' throat until they prove they can stop it. I think I said I'm gonna run up the middle all day until the Jets show they can stop it. And the Jets never showed they can stop it. So why would San Francisco stop running it? So this is a problem the Jets have. When we learned a few weeks ago that Lecky Fotu was going to be on IR and probably miss or would miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season, my response was, okay, what's the move here? What's the counter move that the Jets are going to make because you don't have another guy on the roster who does what he does? There are some free agents out there. There are guys on practice squads who may not be elite talents, but they fill a need that this team has right now. And that need isn't going away until they bring somebody else in. So, like, again, we give this defensive coaching staff a lot of leeway because they've done some good things. So when there was no replacement brought in for Fotu, my thought was, okay, I guess they have a plan here. I guess they have some ideas as to how they're going to slow this 49ers offense down without a run plugger in the middle. Turns out they really didn't. And it got ugly. And we talked, you heard the post game comments that Quinn Williams was taking some reps at defensive end to free him up a little bit. So maybe not so many double teams. Okay, that's great. But now you're taking the best guy in your interior and moving him while having not much depth behind him. Again, with Fotu's a big blow. I think he's a guy that they envision being able to play a lot of early downs and be a factor against the run. And he just isn't there. So the Jets need to fix this. Fotu's out for at least a few more weeks. So you can't go into the next. And listen, I get it. The 49ers are the 49ers, one of the best head coaches, one of the young best head coaches in the NFL. He's going to be able to game plan. He's going to exploit weaknesses and things like that. Not everybody is Kyle Shanahan. So maybe, you know, you're not playing the Niners every week. And that I think that's a spot where fans need to relax a little bit. I know it's not what we do, but this was one game. It was one game where things didn't go well, but it was kind of predictable. After picking the Jets to win this game, I said yesterday, I'm not so sure anymore because if you just look around the league, week one football was so sloppy across the board. Most of what you saw was bad tackling, bad quarterback play, offensive lines out of sync. Teams don't play their starters anymore in the preseason. And so whoever's doing a better job in practice, and I think we do all agree that Shanahan at this point in time is light years ahead of Robert Saleh in terms of what they are capable of doing as head coaches. So again, not a huge shock they lost this game. It's unfortunate, with the Niners being the best team on the Jets schedule, I really would have loved to have seen them week 5 or 6. Give this team a few weeks to ramp up and get a feel for who they are and all this stuff. Look, it doesn't work that way. Like you play the schedule you're dealt. I understand that. I just a not from a I didn't want to start 0-1 standpoint, but I feel like if you're gonna have a measuring stick, like let's have a measuring stick game 5 6 weeks in, when you've had a chance to get some rhythm, some chemistry going. Um, Again, which we don't see, that doesn't get built in the preseason like it used to. So now you're having essentially, in a lot of ways, for a lot of teams, preseason quality football for the first couple weeks of the year. So hopefully the Jets get, a lot cleaned up that went wrong yesterday. I'm looking forward to the all 22. I know that, not everybody is because it was an ugly game, but I think they did some things that went okay. I think the pass pro was good. I think Aaron Rodgers, considering the fact he hasn't played a full football game in over a year, I thought he was encouraging. What we saw from Lazard was fantastic. He had the early drop, but he made some plays. But the blocking up front, it wasn't good, and it was a shame they stuck with it for too long. But the fact of the matter is, you played an elite opponent on the road week one. I can't believe. Well, I guess I should believe it, but there are fans out there who are just like, nothing's different, nothing's changed, everything's the same. This, that, the other. No, no, you're a very good football team. Well, you're a team with very good football players. You played a team with very good football players and a very good coaching staff in their building playing guys who, by the way, if you look at the 49ers, they did play their starters a little bit in preseason. Not a ton, but 20, 30, 40 reps for some of these starters to get them in some type of rhythm or just give them some type of feel for the game. And that's not Rich, how we doing? Not about the loss, but the way they lost. Rich, this is the point I'm making. This is what the video is, right? They have to find a way. I said it before. I said it at the time. I've said it a couple times since then. Dumping John Franklin Myers when they did was stupid. I'm a Joe Douglas guy, but if he does something dumb, I'm going to say he did something dumb. And I said it at the time, and people laugh. Oh, big deal. So what? We got Hassan Reddick. Who cares if JFM is gone? JFM is overrated. Quarterback pressures don't matter. They do matter. And that dude used to get a ton of them. Jets had 2 yesterday. Matter of fact, I think it was Dylan. Somebody mentioned to me the other day. Week 1 last year, John Franklin Myers, 8 pressures against the Bills. Yesterday against the 49ers, the entire Jets defense, 2, maybe 3 on if we're going to count the garbage time sack that Michael Clemens got. So, yeah, they have to get better in the trenches. But, look, JFM's gone. You dumped him. Reddick, even if he comes in, he's not a force against the run. He's not as good against the run as JFM was. And you've got Fotu on the shelf. So, you either feel like you can scheme your way through some wins while you wait on Fotu with, some lesser opponents coming up. But until you prove you can stop the run, even these lesser teams that, on paper at this point, I don't know that you could say anyone's lesser after 1 week and a week 1 loss. GM Island Empire, the middle of the defense needs help ASAP. That was my point in the video I did pregame. I mentioned the middle, but I mentioned the safeties. I said that my biggest concern going into that game was the Jets' ability to stop the run and the Jets' ability to use their safeties up the middle to cover the tight ends. Now, that ended up not being a huge issue because they were so bad against the run, the Niners didn't even really have to incorporate Kittle at any point. I think he had 40 yards. So there wasn't really a huge need to cover George Kittle. But again, up the middle, and I said it. It's my biggest concern going into this season. This roster doesn't have a lot of holes, but where they do, and I say it all the time, there's no perfect roster. Every team you can pick apart and say, here's where this team needs to get better. That applies to the Jets, and I've been saying for probably months now, where they need to be better is up the middle. Even Mosley, who, he missed a little bit of time yesterday with an injury. When guys like Mosley and I'm not knocking him, I'm just saying we don't know yet. It's early in the year, but when you get guys who have that many miles, on that much tread on the tire or that much wear, how much tread is left, you don't know for a little bit how well he's going to play. So, between not being deep at DT, Mosley being another year older, and the safeties being questionable, I've said all offseason my biggest concern is up the middle, back end and front end of the defense. And we saw them get burned last night. Ashton Davis was terrible. There's no getting around it. But GM, he mentions John Franklin Myers. And like I said, a lot of people hate on Myers, and I blame fantasy football for a lot of the way fans view the game nowadays. Everyone thinks a team should be built in a year. Everyone thinks that everybody should be an all-star. And people think that role players aren't important. False, entirely false. John Franklin Myers, superstar? No. Key role player, guy who played inside, guy who played outside, could stop the run, could pressure the quarterback. I said all the time, when they lost him, I said, Jets fans don't realize how much they're going to miss John Franklin Myers. And it's taken exactly one game for fans to say, oh my God, I can't believe we got rid of John Franklin Myers. You gave him away for nothing. And that's what makes it really sting. Losing JFM was bad anyway, but to lose him in exchange for essentially nothing, a future 6th round pick, I mean, you may as well have released the guy for what you got. It's almost insulting. But that's where you are if you're the Jets right now. Like I said, you got the free agent pool is pretty thin. Not a lot of really big dudes out there. I scrolled through the list yesterday of best available NFL free agents. There are a couple of practice squad guys out there with a little bit of experience who are bigger guys, 330, 335. And they need another dude like that. Leonard Taylor made the roster, great, but Leonard Taylor isn't a run stuffer. He's not a space eater. He's a gap shooter. He can be a factor. He can develop into a nice player and all that stuff. But if the Jets need somebody up front who can stand their ground and not get bullied out of the way and open up these holes that we saw last night against the 49ers. It was absolutely atrocious, and just frustrating because I listen. If you've been listening to me long enough, you know that I often make the point that I don't pretend that I'm an NFL head coach. I don't pretend I know more than these guys do because I don't. I'm a fan like you guys. I watch the game, been watching it long enough to understand it well enough that even I, as a fan, am looking at this team in the weeks leading up to the season and going, man, they must have a really good plan up the middle because personnel wise, if Fotu is out, there's nothing telling me they're going to be able to stop the run. But I guess they have a plan, and they didn't. Um, gave him too much credit, maybe. Uh, Ed says what Ether Ed says is Reddick the answer. No, I mean, listen, he's the answer to improving the pass rush, but he's not going to do anything to help you, in terms of stopping them from blowing you off the ball up the middle and running down your throat. Now, Reddick, the thing, he improves the pass rush. The pass rush was non-existent, but it's also important to remember that because San Fran was running the ball down the Jets' throats all night, there weren't a lot of third and longs. There weren't many situations where San Fran was really under pressure to make something happen with down and distance that was advantageous to the Jets defense. But even still, you have to do something, and the Jets didn't. So even though you weren't playing under ideal circumstances to get to the quarterback because you're playing a guy who gets the ball out quickly, you're playing a team that is again setting up lots of second and threes and third and twos, third and fours, not a lot of third and sevens, eights, nines where you can pin your ears back and say, all right, let's go get him. However, and I made this point yesterday, I think that when they did have the opportunity, when we did see some third and longs, there still wasn't much pressure. Again, I'm going to go back and watch the all 22 when that comes out. Yeah, and Ed's asking where was the pressure on Purdy? It was non-existent. Like I said, there were a lot of factors in there, but you still have to be better than what the Jets were. They talked about how Quinnen Williams played the end. I'm curious to see the snap count there. I didn't catch that during the game. I didn't catch the fact that Quinnen was lining up at defensive end, but probably because when I'm looking at the tackles, if I don't see Quinnen, I just assume he's not on the field. Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad game, but it was one game. Like I said, it's not ideal. Would have loved to have opened up against a solid but not great opponent. Like I don't feel like you want to see your toughest opponent week one. Like I said, get ramped up, get ready, get some games under your belt, get some rhythm, and then see where you are. Because really, over the next few weeks, if the Jets win a bunch in a row, say they get to 5-2 or 6-2 or whatever, all anyone's going to say is, yeah, but you lost to the best team you played, and you lost pretty handily. So, and rightfully so, because that is the way the NFL works. If you play one quality opponent and then beat a bunch of lesser opponents, that's what people are going to talk about. Really, until the Jets play and beat a couple of better teams down the stretch, that's going to be the narrative, even if they win the next 4 or 5 games, which I think they can. I think they can. I think they will. I think that the Minnesota game against Darnold, that'll be interesting. Just because of it's only week one. Again, if we're gonna say it with the bad with the Jets, it's only 1 week. Even the good, like Darnold looked fantastic against the Giants, but it's the Giants and it's 1 week. Let's see how he does. GM Highland says Aaron Rodgers looked good. Didn't get a lot of opportunities. The drop and the fumble, offensive role, offensive line will gel. And that's a really good point. I thought about that this morning. How does this game unfold if Lazard catches that third down pass and that drive keeps rolling? Or how does this game unfold if Brees doesn't fumble the ball and they move down the field and get on the board? Because a lot of times, even as bad as the Jets have been on offense in recent years, it feels like the only time they've been somewhat effective is the opening drive. And it's the scripted portion, right? Which isn't a great sign that that's the only time your offense is performing well. But that's the scripted plays that you work on throughout the week, where guys are a little more comfortable. You can get a little bit of that rhythm because you've worked on this stuff. They didn't get that because, a drop, a fumble, and then you're off and running and things have kind of fallen apart before you ever got going. So again, I'm not saying that would have made the difference in the game and they would have won, but offensively, we mentioned last night, somebody tweeted out, it may have been Rich Cimini, I could be wrong. Time of possession for Aaron Rodgers was the lowest in his career. He's never played an NFL football game where he only held the ball for 20 minutes. So not a lot of opportunity. You could point to the box score. He had the pick. The one pick was off a deflection. It wasn't like he made a bad read. Um, and so the numbers were low, but the opportunities were low. He's never had, fewer chances to make some plays. Run game wasn't going. So they have some things to work on. Like I said, the new preseason is week 1, 2, 3. Hopefully by then you have your act together. But Rodgers made enough good throws that I feel really good about this team. That was a knocking the rust off Aaron Rodgers. And he made that 26-yarder to Lazard down the left sideline. I thought was a thing of beauty. I thought it was his best throw of the game. The TD to Lazard, as I said last night, vintage Rodgers, draw somebody off sides, get the free play, find the end zone. Ed says at least we know where we have to make amends in the Titans and address the mistakes. Cool to see Rodgers throw that touchdown. It was very cool. It was nice to see him take a hit and get up. Nice to see him play the whole game. Would have liked to see the kids a little bit more. I would have especially that last drive. Get Corley some reps. You gave Braylon Allen a carry, but more guys have to get involved. That's for sure. Like get Tyler Conklin some targets. We know he can make plays. I think the only one I recall was the last drive on the dump off from Tyrod. So that's it right now. Might come back tonight. Definitely on tomorrow night with Dylan and Chris Schubert to wrap this thing up and go more in depth. We'll have watched the game a few times by then, kind of get a better understanding for what was going on. But the Jets, they got to fix the middle of this defense. Like I said, if they're looking at this like, there's nobody out there we like, and okay, San Fran was a loss, but we could win these next few games with or without a run stuffer in the middle. And maybe they can. But do you leave it to chance, or do you say, let's upgrade this spot? Let's find somebody who can step in and be that immovable object you want in the middle of the defense? Rich, no problem. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully the audio is better. Apologize for yesterday. Some mic issues, apparently, on my show, and then I did another show after where it was not good. So hopefully no audio issues tonight. Or this morning. Have a good one, Jets fans.